Chapter 31. What is faith? Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Faith is God. Faith is substance. Faith is life. Faith is truth. Faith is health. Faith is confidence. Faith is assurance. Faith is freedom. Faith is realization. There is nothing but faith, faith in good, faith in evil. Faith is man's power to act upon the substance, mind, spirit, life, and perfection of God. Faith is man's power to heal every disease and to educate himself out of every imperfect belief. Imperfect and evil conditions are kept alive by our faith in them. They are sustained by the power of our faith and the repetition of them in our minds. There is nothing but faith, and without faith man's world comes to an end. Belief is passive. Faith is active. Being impersonal and positive, faith acts upon everything with which man identifies himself. We can cultivate belief, but faith was given to us. It grows with the exercise of our trust. A man can believe whatever he wishes to believe, but it is by faith that he enters into his belief and keeps him alive. Since faith is always positive and always active, it is the power that increases good or evil in our lives. No matter how we may use it, faith works. Being a combination of thought and feeling, faith works just as effectively in negative states of consciousness as it does in positive states. Faith is impersonal. Fear, for instance, is faith in evil. It is faith turned the wrong way around. But faith in appearances is just as strong as faith in God. Faith cannot change from itself. When man disbelieves in sickness, poverty, and discord, faith must then work for his health, wealth, and harmony. We can change the manifestations in the outer world only by changing our belief in the mind. The reason for so much sickness and poverty in the world today is because man is content to remain in personality. He is always trying to make his faith and personality do the work which belongs to spirit. He trusts personality and looks to it for his good. Jesus said, "The arm of flesh will fail you." And we read of him that he did not commit himself unto them, for he knew what was in man. The ever-recurring disappointments of a misplaced faith will attend the man who trusts personality for his good. Man has all the faith in the world. What he needs is more faith in good, which will produce more good in his life. If an ignorant or wrong use of faith has brought evil conditions in our lives, we should see them as stepping stones to a more positive and God-like use of our faith. The depth of our valley can then be the height of our mountain. We can turn evil conditions into good ones by changing the identity of our beliefs. Our fears will prove to be blessings if we can see them as our capacity for faith. Personality says, "Of my own self I can do nothing." Faith says, "God can do all things through me." When man's faith is perfectly integrated with the will of God, then nothing is impossible to him. According to St. Paul, faith is both the substance and evidence of things not seen. Faith does not materialize substance, but allows us to be physically conscious of that which eternally is. It is our consciousness of a thing that makes it real to us. It is our consciousness that clothes it with physical identity. Our faith, then, is our consciousness, or the essence of the thing itself. Thus, God as faith within us is both the substance and evidence of everything needful in our lives. Out of the substance of my active faith, my hoped-for revelations are formed. Chapter 32. Putting our faith to work. Have faith in God. We learned in our previous lessons that faith is the power that our own minds to hold fast that which is good, or to hold fast that which is evil. It is the sum total of all our human experience. Faith works the way we use it. Belief is experimental. Faith is positive action. Belief is impatient. Faith is patient. Belief seeks signs. Faith is its own evidence. Faith is the realization and proof of things not seen. If things have not been going well with us, then we need to change the object of our faith. What we need is not more faith, but more faith in God. We need to exercise our faith in the right way. When the faith of man is perfectly integrated with the faith and will of God, then man has limitless power to accomplish anything he wishes to do. God says, "I will never leave thee nor forsake thee." Thus, when we do our part, God will not fail to do his. Faith is the most faithful thing in all the world, and we must claim it now. Since our capacity to receive from God is always measured by the capacity of our faith, we need to enlarge those beliefs until they can recognize the all-presence of God. We have the promise that all things are yours. Then why ask for things? Could an infinite God think of terms of things or look to the world for his good? If we inwardly knew that all power is given unto us in heaven and earth, would not our word have the power to find its form in the visible? Would not this very consciousness have the power to speak the word health, and put to the end the condition of sickness, or the word perfection, and bring forth a manifestation of wholeness to replace the condition of imperfection? Faith is an attitude of mind against which there is no longer any contradiction possible to the mind that entertains it. If that mental attitude is identified with God, then that is faith in God. If that attitude is identified with one's ability to do any particular thing, then it is his ability to do that thing. Knowledge in itself is insufficient, for unless we act upon the knowledge we have, we shall get no results. He who trusts God speaks with authority. He who only believes in God speaks with uncertainty. Trust is the activity between knowledge and faith. When we trust God absolutely, he does the work for us. To trust God, therefore, would be to recognize, as Jesus did, that it is done. When there is no longer anything left in the subjective state of our thought to contradict the statement of our lips, then the work is done. The most difficult thing we have to do is to neutralize those beliefs which contradict the reality of the word which we speak. We can do that by saying many times a day, "I have faith in God, not man. I have faith in health, not sickness. I have faith in wealth, not poverty. I have faith in strength, not weakness. I have faith in good, not evil. I have faith in unity, not separation." God is omniscience, all knowledge, the answer to every problem. God is omnipresence, all presence, knowing only itself. God is omnipotence, all power, the activity of spirit in all our affairs. God is here. The answer is here. The substance of everything we need is here. Have faith in God, the good. Absolute faith in one presence and one power relaxes the mind so that the substance and power of God may flow through us without hindrance. The important factor in realization is faith. As we keep the mind open toward principle, the power of God can accomplish our desires. Since belief is purely intellectual and faith is properly spiritual, I surrender my changing beliefs to a substantial faith. Chapter 33, Prayer. Our faith comes in moments, yet there is a depth in those brief moments which constrains us to ascribe more reality to them than to all other experience. Emerson. What things soever ye desire, when ye pray, believe, be firm that ye receive, present tense, them, and ye shall have them. This is the exact law of prayer. Believe, and ye shall receive. Doubt, and you shall not. The object of prayer is not to gain God's attention, but to let him hold ours. The law of mathematics will not solve a problem in arithmetic or algebra any more than the law of electricity will light a house or run a streetcar. Laws of themselves are helpless to do or undo anything for us. Man must use the law for definite purpose and specific needs. He must set the law in motion and specialize it through his own mind. The kingdom of heaven is finished, and the only purpose of prayer is to help us to see it as it is. We shall always perceive and experience as much of heaven or wholeness as our own individual conscience permits. Heaven is our consciousness of it, but so is our sickness, so are our problems and our miseries. Jesus' method of prayer was to make agreement with his good. Recognition must always precede realization. Unless prayers take us into a new consciousness of our unity with good, they become clouds without rain. Agree with thine adversary quickly, while thou art in the way with him. The adversary here referred to is the collective name for everything which separates us from God. The first step in scientific prayer, therefore, is to agree, or forgive all the evil and limitations in our minds. The Son of Man hath power on earth to forgive sins. Until we can make the evil unimportant, we cannot affirm the perfection which we know to be real. The word forgive, as stated elsewhere in this book, means literally to absolve or pardon the evil, and then replace it with the good. It is ridiculous to believe that God forgives sin when, as Habakkuk tells us, he knows nothing about sin. Since man is the only sinner and the maker of all the evil in his life, he himself is the only one who can forgive sins and evil or make them of no importance by his agreement with divine law. It was because Lazarus was alive that Jesus called him from the tomb. It was because there was an abundance of food that he fed the 5,000. It was because the idea of a man's arm was perfect and changeless that Jesus commanded him to stretch it forth. It was because there are no blind eyes or deaf ears in spirit that Jesus could by his spoken word open them. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. Before the miracle of turning water into wine, Jesus said, "Fill the water pots with water." To the fisherman he said, "Cast the net on the right side of the boat." To the grieving widow he said, "Weep not." Before feeding the 5,000 he commanded the people to sit down. And in order to get water, the 3 kings were told to make the valley full of ditches. Prayer, to be effective, must be affirmative and positive. There must be a perfect union between the mind and will of a man and the mind and the will of God. God helps them who helps themselves. He gives to those who believe or relate themselves to that which they want. Prayer is not true until there is an absolute recognition and acceptance of that which is about to appear. Filling the pots with water and casting the net on the right side of the boat were symbolical of the acknowledgement or belief in the gift. The reason Jesus was to become the Christ was that at the objective point of his thought there was a complete realization of the unity of the Spirit and the absoluteness of his word. I turn to God in love and faith, for he hears my innermost prayer. Chapter 34, Rules of Prayer. Grant that through me thou shalt show them how to pray aright. 1. Prayer is the science of inducing, in mind, concepts, acceptances, and realizations of peace, poise, power, plenty, health, happiness, and success, or whatever the particular need may be. 2. We must harmonize our will with God's will. Let the will of God be done in me. 3. To receive an answer to our prayer, we must have the consciousness for which it stands. The act of man is followed by the act of God. 4. Pray without ceasing. The very best prayer in the world is a continuous effort to think straight. 5. Listen greatly to yourself. Every prayer begins and ends with your thought. It is an action and reaction of the mind upon itself. Every man answers his own prayer through his belief or mental equivalent. 6. We are to ask in the name or nature of Jesus Christ, in spiritual consciousness. To ask in his name is to recognize our own sonship, divinity, and perfection, and become ourselves the embodiment of the God powers as manifested in Jesus Christ. 7. Before they call, I will answer. The kingdom of heaven is finished. It is done. All we need to do is to see it as it is. 8. Desire is not something to be worked for, but it is the thing in its incipiency pressing towards us for expression. 9. The real nature of prayer is set forth in Jesus' statement, "Consider the lilies how they grow. They toil not, neither do they spin." 10. Ye shall decree a thing, and it shall come to pass. It shall come to pass when you recognize that God's work is done, and you are merely relating yourself to it. 11. When we pray, we must not become anxious about results. In quietness and confidence shall be your strength. 12. Before Abraham was, I am. God is working for you all the time. Know, therefore, that he is already doing the thing that you are asking him to do. 13. Pray first for a whole mind, and all other desires will be fulfilled automatically. 14. Instant answers to prayer come through man's unity with God, when man and God are in perfect agreement. 15. All that I have is thine. Convince your subjective mind that it is not only God's will, but his desire to give you everything you can ask for and take. 16. I know that thou hearest me always. To be on speaking and receiving terms with God, we must be one with this consciousness, which is the perfect relationship between Father and Son. 17. I thank thee, Father, that thou hearest me. Prayer should begin and close with praise and thanksgiving. The prayer of praise and thanksgiving opens the mind to receive. 18. Pray to thy Father, which is in secret. To pray in secret is to close the consciousness to the outer world. Just remember that God cannot answer our prayer if we are thinking of things. We are not truly in the presence if we are feeling lack or limitation of any kind. 19. And thy Father, which seeth in secret, shall reward thee openly. When our consciousness of God overbalances everything else, the prayer is sure to be answered. 20. I have a way ye know not of. God will find a way even when there is no way. 21. The secret of answered prayer is contained in the following words: If ye abide in me, and my words abide in you, ye shall ask what you will, and it shall be done unto you. To abide in Christ is to have immediate access to God. To live in the spiritual consciousness is to share his life, his power, and his substance. 22. Therefore I say unto you, all things whatsoever ye pray and ask for, believe that ye have received them, and ye shall have them. The difference between conscious and actual possession of a thing is the knowledge that we have received it. The world of things will always respond to a conscious state of having received. 23. God does not bring to birth and not bring forth. If our prayer is not answered, it is because we have only affirmed, asked believing. To complete the circuit there must be both affirmation and realization. 24. Make an end of prayer. Now when Solomon had made an end of praying, the fire came down from heaven and consumed the burnt offering and the sacrifice, and the glory of God filled the house. God steps in when man steps out. To make an end to the prayer, we must leave it in God's hand and take no more thought about it. Through prayer, thou highest thought for me shall be fulfilled. Chapter 35. The Great Universal Solvent. For the peace of heaven, now manifesting as harmony in my world, God of peace, I am thankful. Acquaint now thyself with him, and be at peace. Thereby good shall come unto thee. Infinite and eternal peace has been defined as that quality of consciousness which would be induced through contemplation of the statement, the earth is without form and is void. That is, fulfilling St. Paul's behest to be absent from the body and present with the Lord. The greatest experience of God is peace, the peace that passes all understanding. It is the power by which we enter the kingdom of heaven, and the power by which we remain there. Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on thee. When we have completely detached ourselves from the realm of things, ourselves included, that which remains is peace. My peace I give unto you. No other gift is so great, for peace is that condition of consciousness through which God directly works. It is that element in which all of our prayers are answered and through which all of our good comes to us. Seek peace and pursue it. Thereby good shall come unto thee. In the truest sense, metaphysics is an abstract science, and until one gets on the spiritual basis above things, its principles simply do not work. To illustrate this point, we shall call attention to the fact that if you were going to write an important letter, you would not think of writing it on stationery that had already been used. You would instead take a perfectly clean new piece of paper. In metaphysical science, our work must be done in spiritual or clear consciousness. We must have a new state of consciousness before we can express new effects. Put off the old man and put on the new, which is Christ. The new, which is Christ, is that mental state wherein the world is without form and void. Now, since all our problems, difficulties, disease, and discord are in the world of personality and things, and since it is impossible to be conscious of infinite peace and trouble at the same time, one needs only to enter the abstract quality of peace to get away from the disturbing elements in his life. Infinite peace is an unvarying, changeless state of being, which knows no possibility of reaction, discord, or any change from itself. Peace is not the lack of confusion or noise. The truth is that confusion and noise are the lack of peace. We enter peace in such degree as we become peaceful, and the secret of enduring peace is to keep our minds stayed upon the power and goodness of the present moment. The greatest enemy to peace is the wasteful habit of allowing the mind to think ahead and to dwell upon future uncertainties. Every time we go over problems or anticipate solutions in our minds, we are only increasing the problem and dividing the energy which will be needed when we come to it. When the mind and affairs are in turmoil, we need only to identify ourselves with infinite peace to get immediately away from them. Hold your peace and remain free. For when the soul has entered into a deep realization of God's wonderful peace, the things of the outer world will no longer have power to disturb you. The mind that is stayed upon the power of peace will attract only peaceful conditions to itself. This day I am free from all worry and anxiety, because I put my whole trust in God. The peace of God now fills my heart and extends to the very circumference of my world. End of chapter. End of book.